The dust painted the Wyoming horizon in hues of amber and gold. As Tessa Vance stepped off the westbound train into Concord in 1885, her gloved hand trembling as she clutched a telegram announcing her brother's death. The journey from Boston had been long, but the weight in her heart made each step onto the wooden platform feel like wading through quicksand. This wasn't how her Western adventure was supposed to begin. "Madam, your luggage," the porter called, setting down her two trunks containing all that remained of her former life: fine dresses now impractical, books that had been her escape, and a deed to land she'd never seen. Tessa smoothed down her travel-worn navy dress and surveyed the small but bustling town that was to be her new home. Concord, Wyoming Territory, was nothing like the illustrations in the penny novels she devoured back east. The main street was muddy despite the dry season, lined with wooden buildings weathered by harsh winters and unforgiving summers. No glamour, no romance, just the stark reality of frontier life. "Miss Vance," a rail-thin man in a dusty suit approached. "Horace Miller, town banker. We've been expecting you since your brother's unfortunate accident." Tessa nodded, trying to maintain composure. "Thank you for meeting me, Mr. Miller. I understand there are matters regarding Ethan's property to discuss." "Indeed. Though I must warn you, the ranch your brother purchased isn't quite what the advertisements claimed." Miller's expression was a mixture of pity and embarrassment. "Perhaps we should discuss it at my office after you've had a chance to rest." The Paradise Hotel, a grand name for the three-story wooden building across from the station, would be her temporary home. As Tessa followed the hotel owner up creaking stairs, the reality of her situation settled more firmly on her shoulders. She was 24, alone in a strange town. Her dreams of reuniting with her adventurous older brother shattered by a riding accident 3 weeks before her arrival. Her room was clean but spare: a narrow bed, washstand, and small writing desk beneath a window that overlooked the main street. Tessa sat heavily on the bed, finally allowing tears to fall now that she was alone. Boston society had become stifling after her parents' deaths, and Ethan's letters describing Wyoming's beauty and opportunity had been her beacon. Now that light was extinguished. The next morning brought further disappointment. Miller's office was organized but cramped, and his news devastating. "Your brother purchased sight unseen, I'm afraid. The 500 acres are mostly unworkable land, rocky, with poor access to water." Miller shuffled papers on his desk. "The cabin is little more than a shack. I've had offers from neighboring ranchers, but none willing to pay even half what your brother invested." "I see." Tessa's voice was hollow, and his debts substantial. "The medical bills, funeral costs, and outstanding loans on equipment nearly exceed the property's worth." Miller removed his spectacles. "Miss Vance, I would advise selling immediately and returning east. This is no place for a woman alone." "I have nowhere to return to, Mr. Miller." Tessa straightened her spine, though inside she was crumbling. "I sold everything to join my brother. I will at least see this land before making decisions." Miller looked skeptical but arranged for a wagon to take her to the property the following day. The driver, an elderly man named Pete, maintained a steady stream of chatter as they traveled the rutted road out of town. "Your brother was well liked, miss. Quick to laugh, quicker to help a neighbor. Shame about the accident." Tessa watched the landscape roll by: sagebrush plains giving way to more rugged terrain, the distant mountains standing like sentinels. How did it happen exactly? The telegram was vague. Pete's weathered face grew solemn. "Breaking a wild Mustang. Horse threw him against the corral posts. Doctor came from town, but the head injury was too severe." They crested a hill and Pete pointed to a valley below. "There it is, Vance property. Tessa's heart sank. The small cabin was just as Miller described: weathered logs, a sagging porch, chimney listing slightly to one side. A corral held a few horses, and a small barn looked in need of repair. The surrounding land was beautiful but harsh, more suited to grazing than farming. "It's not much," Pete said apologetically, "but the water rights to that creek are valuable. Good grazing land to the north, too." Tessa climbed down from the wagon, her boots hitting Wyoming soil for the first time. This was her land now, this beautiful, terrible place where her dreams had died alongside her brother. "I'll help with your trunk, then need to head back before dark," Pete said. "Town's sending someone to check on you in a few days, but you've got supplies to last." Alone in the cabin that evening, Tessa surveyed her new home by lantern light. A rough table and chairs, a cast iron stove, simple shelving stacked with provisions. The bedroom held a narrow bed with Ethan's clothes still hanging from pegs on the wall. His journal lay on a small table, and Tessa ran her fingers over the leather cover, not yet ready to read his final thoughts. A noise from outside startled her horses approaching. Fear gripped her as she realized how vulnerable she was. Tessa grabbed the shotgun from beside the door, loading it as Ethan had taught her during his last visit east. She moved to the window, heart pounding. Two riders approached the cabin, silhouetted against the dying light. One dismounted, approaching with a confident stride. "Hello, the house," a deep voice called. "Ethan Vance, you've got strays in your north pasture again." Tessa cracked the door, shotgun visible. "Ethan Vance is dead. This is his sister." The man stopped short, removing his hat to reveal tousled dark hair. Even in the dim light, she could see startling blue eyes beneath a furrowed brow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in practical ranch wear: denims, flannel shirt, worn leather vest, and dusty boots. "My apologies, madam." "Zeke Taylor, neighboring ranch." He gestured to his companion, who remained mounted. "That's my foreman, Charlie. We didn't know about visitors." "Not visiting, staying." Tessa lowered the shotgun slightly. "Ethan was my brother. I inherited the property." Surprise crossed Zeke's features, followed by something like concern. "I was sorry to hear about Ethan. Good man." He shifted uncomfortably. "You planning to run the ranch yourself?" "I haven't decided." Tessa's voice was sharper than intended. "You mentioned strays." "3 of your horses broke through the fence line. We rounded them up, brought them back." He gestured toward the corral where she now noticed additional horses. "Thank you, Mr. Taylor." "Zeke, please, and you are?" "Tessa Vance." He nodded, replacing his hat. "Well, Miss Vance, that fence won't hold them again. I'd see to repairing it soon." He turned to leave, then hesitated. Ethan's loss hit the community hard. "If you need anything, Yellow Sky Ranch is just over that ridge, about 3 miles." Tessa watched them ride away, conflicting emotions battling within her. Pride told her to manage alone, but practical sense argued otherwise. She knew nothing about ranching, fences, or surviving Wyoming winters. That night, she finally opened Ethan's journal, reading by lamplight until her eyes burned. His entries revealed a man determined but struggling, battling harsh weather, predators, equipment failures, and financial strain. Yet underneath ran a current of joy, a love for the land that resonated through his words. The final entry, dated just days before his death, caught her breath. Hard times coming. Droughts affected grazing, might need to sell some stock. Taylor offered to buy the north section again. Might have to consider it, though hate giving up an inch of this beautiful country. Still, once Tessa arrives, things will improve. She's always been the sensible one, the planner. Together we'll make this work. Can't wait to see her face when she sees the Tettons in morning light. Tessa closed the journal, tears streaming. She'd come west to escape Boston's suffocating society, to build something with her last living family member. Now she faced an impossible situation: a failing ranch she couldn't manage, mounting debts, and a community of strangers. Mourning brought clarity. She would stay 1 month, settle Ethan's affairs, then decide. Stepping outside, Tessa finally understood what had captured her brother's heart. The landscape stretched before her, rugged, untamed, breathtaking. The rising sun painted the distant mountains in pink and gold, while closer hills rolled in shades of sage and amber. The air smelled of pine and earth, crisp and clean in a way Boston's never was. Tessa's contemplation was interrupted by the sound of horses. A wagon approached, driven by a woman with silver-streaked dark hair. Beside her sat a girl of perhaps 16. The woman pulled the wagon to a stop, sizing up Tessa with kind but assessing eyes. "You must be Ethan's sister. I'm Martha Wilkins, run the general store in town with my husband. This is my daughter, Abigail." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Tessa said, approaching the wagon. "Brought you some proper supplies. Pete mentioned you'd arrived with city provisions." Martha hopped down spryly for a woman of her age. "No offense, but you'll need more than canned goods and tea to survive out here." The wagon contained practical items: sturdy work clothes, boots, tools, seeds, preserves, and a crate of chickens that clucked indignantly. "I don't know what to say," Tessa stammered, overwhelmed by the generosity. "Say you'll come to Sunday supper next week," Martha replied. "Community sticks together out here. Your brother understood that." Abigail helped unload while Martha toured the cabin, making notes and clucking her tongue at various deficiencies. "Roof needs patching before winter. Chimney's a hazard. And that corral won't hold through the next storm. I'm not certain I'll be staying," Tessa admitted. Martha regarded her thoughtfully. "Ethan mentioned you were a school teacher back east." "I was, yes, for 3 years. Concord's looking for one." "Our last teacher married a cattle buyer from Cheyenne." Martha shrugged. "Something to consider." After they departed, Tessa spent the day taking inventory of the property. The barn contained farming implements, some broken, others mysterious in purpose. The corral held 5 horses, 2 workhorses, a mare with foal, and the Mustang that had killed her brother. The last stood apart, watching her with wary eyes, magnificent despite its untamed nature. The broken fence line Zeke mentioned was evident on the north boundary. Tessa studied it, remembering diagrams from one of Ethan's letters. She gathered tools and lumber from the barn and set to work. Her city hands soon blistered and dirty. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made her look up, shielding her eyes against the afternoon sun. Zeke Taylor rode toward her, leading a pack horse. He dismounted with fluid grace, tipping his hat. "Miss Vance." "Mr. Taylor." His eyes took in her work, uneven but earnest. "That's not going to hold." Tessa straightened, wiping sweat from her brow. "I'm doing my best with limited knowledge." Something softened in his expression. "I can see that." He secured his horses and approached the fence line. "May I?" pried Ward with practicality before Tessa nodded, stepping back. Zeke removed his coat, revealing muscular forearms as he rolled up his shirt sleeves. He worked with efficiency, showing her the proper technique for securing posts and stringing wire. "Your brother was planning to replace this entire section," Zeke explained. "We discussed sharing the cost since it benefits both properties." "I see." Tessa watched his hands, trying to memorize the movements. "You wanted to buy his land." Zeke paused. "The north pasture would connect 2 sections of mine, makes sense geographically, but Ethan wasn't selling." "But you think I should?" His blue eyes met hers directly. "I think running a ranch alone is near impossible, even for someone raised to it. For a city woman, you know nothing about me, Mr. Taylor." Tessa's voice was cool despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "I may surprise you." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "I don't doubt that, Miss Vance." He returned to work. "I brought supplies. Heard from Martha you were out here with city provisions. Word travels fast. Small community." He secured the final section of fence. "There, that'll hold for now, but the whole north line needs replacing before winter." Tessa realized the sun was setting, the day gone while she struggled with a task Zeke had completed in an hour. "Thank you." He unloaded supplies from his packhorse, practical items similar to Martha's, but also books on ranching, animal husbandry, and Wyoming flora. "Thought these might help." "They were gathering dust in my library." The gesture touched her unexpectedly. "That's very kind." Zeke's expression remained unreadable. "Neighborly." He mounted his horse. "Charlie or I will check the fence line every few days. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." "I appreciate the offer, but I can manage." He studied her for a moment, as though seeing beyond her brave words. "Everyone needs help sometimes, Miss Vance. Even out here, especially out here, we rely on each other." With a tip of his hat, he rode away, the packhorse trailing behind. Tessa watched until he disappeared over the ridge, confusion swirling through her. She'd come west expecting adventure alongside her brother, not widening responsibility and unwanted charity from strangers, especially not from a man whose intense blue eyes seemed to see right through her pretense of competence. The next week brought lessons in ranch life that no book could adequately prepare her for. Tessa learned to manage the chickens, tend the vegetable garden Ethan had started, and care for the horses except the Mustang, which remained dangerous and aloof. She named him Tempest, speaking softly to him each day but keeping her distance. Sunday brought Martha's promised dinner. Tessa donned her plainest dress, pinned her chestnut hair neatly, and drove the wagon into town, following Martha's directions to a comfortable two-story home behind the general store. The gathering included the Wilkins family, Dr. Peterson and his wife, Reverend and Mrs. Simmons, and to Tessa's surprise, Zeke Taylor. His presence in town clothes a dark suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and clean-shaven jaw made her uncomfortably aware of her own appearance after a week of ranch work. "Miss Vance," he greeted, a hint of appreciation in his eyes. "You look well." "Thank you," she managed before Martha whisked her away to meet the others. Conversation flowed around the dinner table, local gossip, cattle prices, weather predictions. Tessa found herself drawn into discussions despite her newness, answering questions about Boston and her teaching experience. "We're desperate for a teacher," Mrs. Simmons said. "Term starts in 3 weeks. Children are getting restless with this extended summer break." "I haven't decided how long I'll stay," Tessa demurred. "The position pays room and board plus $30 monthly," Dr. Peterson added. "Small by Eastern standards, perhaps, but living expenses are different here." After dinner, Tessa found herself on the porch with Zeke, both seeking momentary escape from the well-meaning but intense interest of the others. "They mean well," he said, correctly reading her expression. "New faces are rare and eligible young women even rarer." "I'm not looking for eligibility opportunities, Mr. Taylor." His smile was unexpected, transforming his serious features into something approaching handsome. "Neither am I, Miss Vance, which is why I'm hiding on the porch." The admission startled a laugh from her. "A strategic retreat." "Precisely." He leaned against the railing. "How are you finding ranch life? Challenging?" Tessa's honesty surprised her. "I've read 3 of your books cover to cover, but practice differs significantly from theory." "Reading about swimming isn't the same as being thrown in the river," Zeke agreed. "You're managing better than most would." The compliment warmed her more than it should. Your fence repair has held. Good to hear. He hesitated. I have men repairing my south line tomorrow. Could spare a couple to start work on your north boundary. Pride rose immediately. I couldn't possibly. It's not charity, Miss Vance. His voice was firm. It's investment. That boundary protects my stock as much as yours. I'd have shared the cost with Ethan. I'm offering the same to you. Tessa considered. I can pay for materials. Fair enough. He studied her. You're considering the teaching position. I am, she admitted. It would provide stable income while I determine what to do with the ranch. Sensible. He turned as Martha called from inside. It appears our reprieve is ending. The evening concluded with Tessa promising to consider the teaching position and accepting an invitation to the town social the following Saturday. Zeke's workers arrived early Monday, two experienced ranch hands who treated her with respectful deference. They worked efficiently, explaining each step as they went. By week's end, the entire north boundary was secure, a substantial improvement that would have taken Tessa months to complete alone. Friday brought unexpected visitors Horace Miller and a well-dressed stranger who introduced himself as James Harrington, a representative from Western Land Development Company. Miss Vance, we've come with an offer, Miller began, seated at Ethan's kitchen table. Mr. Harrington's company is purchasing property throughout the region for a major cattle operation. Harrington smiled blandly. We're prepared to offer $3,000 for the entire property, a generous sum considering its condition and your brother's outstanding debts. Tessa's initial excitement faded as she calculated. My brother paid nearly that amount for the land alone, not including improvements. The market has shifted, Miller explained, and frankly, the property has deteriorated. I'll need time to consider, Tessa replied, uncomfortable with their presumptuous arrival. Of course. Harrington produced papers. Here's our written offer. We'll need an answer by month's end. The company has a tight acquisition schedule. After they departed, Tessa studied the documents with growing unease. The offer seemed comprehensive, but contained clauses she didn't fully understand. More troubling was the pressure for quick acceptance. Saturday's social provided welcome distraction. The town hall was transformed with bunting and lanterns, a small band playing lively tunes. Tessa wore her best remaining dress, blue silk that brought out the gray of her eyes. Zeke found her observing the dancing. Miss Vance, you look lovely. Thank you. She smiled, surprisingly pleased to see him. You clean up well yourself, Mr. Taylor, he laughed, the sound rich and warm. High praise. Would you care to dance? The waltz was familiar but felt different with Zeke's hand at her waist, his movements confident as he guided her through the turns. Tessa found herself enjoying the proximity, the subtle scent of soap and leather that clung to him. I had visitors yesterday, she said as they circled the floor. Western Land Development, they want to buy my property. Zeke's expression tightened. Harrington came calling. You know him. Of him. The company's been buying up small ranches throughout the territory. They've approached me 3 times. You declined. My family's worked that land for 15 years. It's not for sale. His jaw set firmly. What did you tell them? That I needed time. The offer seems fair financially, but it doesn't feel right, Zeke finished. Trust that instinct, Miss Vance. The music ended and Zeke escorted her from the floor. Throughout the evening, Tessa found herself sought after for dances and conversation. The community was welcoming, curious about her background and appreciative of her agreement to temporarily fill the teaching position until a permanent replacement could be found. Later, as Zeke drove her home in his wagon, the night sky brilliant with stars, Tessa felt more settled than at any point since arriving. I accepted the teaching position, she told him. Starting Monday, the children will benefit greatly. His voice held genuine approval. "Where will you stay in town?" "Mrs. Simmons has a spare room. I'll return to the ranch on weekends." Tessa hesitated. "Would you mind checking on the animals occasionally? I've arranged for Pete's son to handle daily feeding, but consider it done." The wagon rolled to a stop before her cabin. Zeke helped her down, his hands strong and sure at her waist. For a moment they stood close in the moonlight. "Thank you for the dance, Mr. Taylor." "Zeke," he reminded her softly. "Zeke," she repeated, the name feeling intimate on her tongue. "Good night." The schoolhouse was a single-room building at the edge of town. Simple but well-maintained. 12 children ranging from 6 to 16 greeted Tessa Monday morning with curious eyes and varying degrees of enthusiasm. Teaching came naturally to her, and Tessa quickly established routines. The children were bright and eager despite gaps in their education. By week's end, she'd assessed their levels and developed appropriate lessons, earning their respect through firm but fair guidance. Weekends at the ranch brought both pleasure and frustration. Tessa found herself looking forward to the solitude after busy school days, but the work never ended. Maintenance issues constantly arose, and the Mustang Tempest remained untamable, watching her with intelligent wariness. Zeke appeared on her third Saturday back, riding up as she struggled to repair a broken chicken coop. "Need a hand?" he called, dismounting. Tessa pushed back strands of hair that had escaped her practical braid. "Is it that obvious?" His smile was becoming a welcome sight. Only to the trained eye. He assessed the damage. "Raccoon or fox?" "Fox, I think. Got 2 chickens before I chased it off." They worked together, rebuilding the damaged section stronger than before. Tessa found conversation with Zeke increasingly easy, his quiet competence and lack of condescension refreshing after Miller's constant suggestions that she sell. "The children mention you often," she said as they finished. "Especially Mary Wilson. She says you helped her family rebuild after the creek flooded last spring." Zeke shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "Community responsibility. It's more than that." Tessa studied him. "You care about this place, not just your land, but the people." "My father taught me that wealth isn't measured by acres but by relationships." He secured the final board. "How are you finding teaching?" "Rewarding." Tessa smiled. "The children are wonderful, though Jimmy Peters tests my patience daily." "He tests everyone's patience." Zeke laughed. "His father's the same way, argumentative but hard-working." The afternoon passed pleasantly as Zeke helped with other repairs. Over coffee on the porch, Tessa found herself sharing stories from her Boston life, her parents' passing, the stifling expectations of her remaining relatives, Ethan's tempting letters about Wyoming freedom. "I came west with such dreams," she admitted softly. "Not just reuniting with Ethan, but building something meaningful, finding purpose. And now," Zeke's blue eyes were intent, "now I'm teaching, which I love, but the ranch." She gestured helplessly. "I'm barely maintaining, not building." Harrington sent another letter yesterday, increasing his offer. Zeke frowned. "Western land development doesn't increase offers without reason." "What do you mean?" "There's speculation about a railroad spur coming through. If true, property values will soar." He set down his cup. "Don't make hasty decisions, Tessa." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and the intimacy of it lingered in the air between them. As October painted the landscape in russet and gold, Tessa settled into dual routines: weekday teacher, weekend rancher. The teaching brought immediate satisfaction. Her students were advancing well, and town parents expressed appreciation for her methods. The ranch remained challenging but increasingly felt like home. Tessa mastered daily chores and tackled weekly maintenance with growing confidence. The Mustang Tempest still resisted taming, but now accepted sugar from her palm progress that symbolized her own gradual adaptation to Western life. Zeke's visits became regular, usually Saturdays, always with practical reasons that somehow extended to shared meals and long conversations. Despite maintaining propriety, Tessa recognized the growing attachment between them. His blue eyes followed her movements, his hand lingered when passing tools, his laughter came more freely in her presence. Town gossip inevitably noticed. Martha mentioned casually that Zeke had never shown such interest in local girls, despite being the territory's most eligible bachelor. Dr. Peterson's wife observed that Zeke had attended more community functions in the past month than the previous year. The schoolhouse harvest celebration brought matters to a head. Tessa organized the children's presentations, helping decorate the building with autumn bounty. Parents arrived with food and good cheer, the event becoming an impromptu community gathering. Zeke appeared as the formal program ended, presenting Tessa with a small bouquet of late wildflowers. "For our teacher," he said, though his eyes conveyed more personal meaning. Later, as families mingled and children played, Horace Miller cornered Tessa. "Miss Vance, have you considered Mr. Harrington's revised offer? The deadline approaches." "I'm still considering my options," Tessa replied carefully. "I strongly advise acceptance. Winter's coming and a woman alone—" "Miss Vance isn't alone," Zeke interrupted, appearing beside her. "She has the support of many in this community." Miller's expression soured. "Taylor, still interfering in business that isn't yours." "Tessa is my neighbor and friend. Her welfare concerns me." Zeke's tone was pleasant but firm. The banker retreated, but the encounter left Tessa unsettled. As Zeke drove her home that evening, she voiced her concerns. "Miller seems unusually invested in my selling. Is there something I should know?" Zeke's hands tightened on the reins. "There are rumors Miller receives commissions for properties acquired by Western land. Nothing proven." "That would explain his persistence." Tessa sighed. "The increased offer is tempting. With that money I could return east comfortably or establish myself elsewhere." "Is that what you want?" Zeke's voice was carefully neutral. The question hung between them as the wagon rolled through moonlit countryside. Tessa considered her answer, recognizing its importance. 2 months ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, she looked out at the silver-washed landscape. "I've found unexpected happiness here. The teaching fulfills me. The community has been welcoming. Even the ranch is becoming less intimidating." "And is that all that's keeping you?" Zeke asked quietly. Tessa met his gaze. "No, not all." The wagon reached her cabin, but neither moved immediately. Finally, Zeke turned toward her, his expression serious. "Tessa, I've developed feelings for you that go beyond neighborly concern." His directness was characteristic. "I find myself thinking of you throughout each day, looking forward to our time together." Her heart quickened. "I feel the same way. I'm not offering pretty words or grand gestures, just honesty." He took her hand. "I'd like your permission to court you properly." The formal request was so perfectly Zeke, straightforward, honorable, respectful of her independence. Tessa smiled, squeezing his hand. "I would like that very much." His kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a demand. Tessa's response was equally measured, though her heart raced with newfound possibility. November brought early snow and the deadline for Harrington's offer. Tessa received a final letter increasing the sum to $3,500, an amount that made her pause despite her developing feelings for Zeke and the community. She sought Martha's counsel over tea at the general store. "That's a substantial sum," Martha acknowledged. "Enough to establish yourself anywhere comfortably." "But is it the right decision?" Tessa stirred her tea absently. The teaching position is only guaranteed through spring. The ranch remains more burden than blessing financially. Martha studied her shrewdly. And what about Zeke? Everyone's noticed his interest. Zeke is. Tessa searched for words. Important to me. Increasingly so. He doesn't open up easily, that one. Lost his mother young, then his father 5 years ago. Runs that ranch with efficiency but keeps his feelings close. Martha patted Tessa's hand. He's different with you. Smiles more. I care for him deeply, Tessa admitted. But is that enough reason to decline a financially sound offer? Only you can answer that. Martha rose to help a customer, then added, but money buys comfort, not happiness. Remember that. Decision day arrived with a heavy snowfall. Tessa canceled school and spent the morning tallying figures: ranch expenses versus potential income, teaching salary versus Eastern opportunities. The columns remained stubbornly close. A knock interrupted her calculations. Tessa opened the door to find Miller and Harrington stomping snow from their boots. "Miss Vance, we've come for your answer," Miller said without preamble. "The final offer stands at $3,500, but only until noon today." Tessa invited them in, maintaining composure despite their presumptive arrival. "Gentlemen, I appreciate your interest, but I've decided against selling." Harrington's pleasant facade slipped. "That's unwise, Miss Vance. Winter's approaching. This property requires substantial investment to remain viable. Nevertheless, it's my decision." Tessa stood firm. "The land was my brother's dream. I find I've developed my own attachment to it." Miller's expression hardened. "Your brother's outstanding loans come due next month. Without sale proceeds, you may face foreclosure regardless." "I'm aware of my financial obligations, Mr. Miller." Tessa's voice remained steady. "I've arranged payment terms with your bank already in writing, as you may recall." The men departed dissatisfied, their wagon disappearing into thickening snow. Tessa watched from the window, questioning her decision even as she felt relief at having made it. The storm worsened through the afternoon. Wind howled around the cabin's corners. Snow accumulated against the walls. Tessa maintained the fire, performed necessary chores, and settled in with one of Zeke's books on winter ranching. As darkness fell, she heard distressed whinnying from the corral. Bundling in Ethan's old coat, Tessa fought through blinding snow to the horse enclosure. The animals huddled together against the wind except Tempest, who had somehow injured his leg and stood apart, trembling. "Easy, boy." Tessa approached slowly, lantern casting yellow light on the frightened animal. Blood stained the snow beneath his right foreleg, a deep gash visible. He needed shelter and treatment, but moving him to the barn meant navigating his fear and injury. Determination overcame apprehension. Using techniques from Zeke's books and her months of patient interaction, Tessa spoke softly, approaching indirectly. Tempest watched with rolling eyes but allowed her closer than ever before. "Trust me," she whispered, extending her hand. The moment stretched, wind whipping snow around them. Then, incredibly, Tempest lowered his head, accepting her touch. Carefully, Tessa secured a rope around his neck, guiding him toward the barn. The injured animal followed haltingly, instinct recognizing her intent to help. Inside the barn, Tessa cleaned and bandaged the wound, a deep puncture, likely from broken corral board. Exhausted but triumphant, she ensured all animals had food and water before battling back to the cabin. The storm's intensity prevented return to town. Tessa maintained the fire through the night, reading Ethan's journal and reflecting on her decision. Her brother's passion for this difficult land resonated more deeply now that she'd experienced its challenges and beauty herself. Morning brought clearing skies and the sound of approaching horses. Tessa opened the door to find Zeke dismounting. concern evident in his features. "Thank God," he said, crossing to her in long strides. "Town's been worried. The storm hit harder than expected." Relief at seeing him overwhelmed propriety. Tessa stepped into his embrace, accepting comfort after the stressful night. Zeke's arms tightened around her, his cheek resting against her hair. "I'm fine," she assured him. "Though Tempest injured himself, I managed to treat him in the barn." Zeke pulled back, surprise evident. "You handled Tempest alone. That horse has thrown experienced wranglers." Pride straightened Tessa's spine. "He trusted me. Eventually." Something shifted in Zeke's expression, respect deepening into admiration. "You continue to amaze me, Tessa Vance." Over coffee, she told him about declining Harrington's offer. Zeke's relief was evident, though he maintained respectful neutrality. "It's your decision entirely," he said, "but I'm glad you're staying." "The ranch still presents challenges," Tessa acknowledged. "Miller reminded me of Ethan's loans coming due. I might have a solution." Zeke leaned forward. "My foreman Charlie is getting married this spring. He and Sarah need a place of their own. They could live here, manage daily operations while you teach, share profits rather than wages." The proposal was practical, preserving her ownership while addressing management concerns. "That's remarkably generous." "Self-serving," Zeke admitted with a smile. "It keeps you in Wyoming." Their courtship deepened through December, conventional despite frontier setting. Zeke escorted Tessa to church, community gatherings, and occasional dinners at his ranch, a much larger operation with a 2-story house that reflected generations of careful building. Christmas brought a town celebration where their relationship became officially acknowledged. Under mistletoe hung in the decorated town hall, Zeke kissed Tessa to appreciative applause from the community who had watched their attachment develop. "About time," Martha declared, while Reverend Simmons smiled benevolently. January's bitter cold kept Tessa in town most weekends, though Zeke made the journey to her boarding house regularly, often bearing small gifts, handmade bookmarks, preserved fruit from his root cellar, a hand-carved wooden box for her hairpins. February brought another confrontation with Miller, who informed Tessa that her payment plan was being reconsidered due to changing bank policies. The thinly veiled attempt at pressure coincided with rumors of confirmed railroad plans that would significantly impact local property values. "They're still trying to acquire the land before official announcements," Zeke explained during a quiet dinner at his home. "Once the railroad plans are public, prices will triple." "So Miller's interference is deliberate obstruction," Tessa concluded. "What can I do?" "Pay off the loan entirely." Zeke hesitated. "I've been considering a proposal, though it's perhaps premature." Tessa set down her fork, heart accelerating at his serious tone. "What sort of proposal?" "A business arrangement initially." His eyes held hers steadily. "My ranch adjoins yours." Combined, they'd create an operation large enough to negotiate favorable contracts with the coming railroad. A partnership, of sorts. Zeke took a deep breath. "Tessa, I love you. I believe you have feelings for me as well. I'm suggesting we marry, combining our properties and our lives." Despite expecting this eventual discussion, the directness startled her. "That's quite practical." "The practicality is secondary." Zeke reached across the table, taking her hand. "I want to build a life with you not because it makes financial sense, but because you've become essential to my happiness. I love your determination, your intelligence, your growing love for this difficult land." Emotion tightened Tessa's throat. "I love you too, Zeke, but marriage is significant." "I'm not asking for an immediate answer." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Consider it carefully. I want your decision based on love, not convenience." The proposal occupied Tessa's thoughts through February's remaining weeks. She loved Zeke, his integrity, his quiet strength, his unwavering support of her independence. Marriage would solve practical problems while fulfilling emotional needs. Yet caution whispered she'd known him only months, had been in Wyoming less than a year. Her last impulsive decision had brought her west to find her brother already gone. Could she trust this new dream? March brought early thaw and railroad surveyors to Concord. Property speculation reached fever pitch as preliminary routes were discussed. Western land development increased pressure, approaching Tessa through intermediaries, with offers reaching $5,000. The school term's end approached, with the board requesting Tessa's decision about continuing next year. Her carefully ordered world seemed to require immediate decisions on all fronts. Seeking clarity, Tessa rode to her property one crisp Saturday. The ranch looked different in early spring, patches of green emerging from melting snow, creek running high with runoff, birds returning to build nests. She visited the corral where Tempest, fully recovered, approached the fence at her arrival. "Hello, handsome," she greeted, offering a sugar cube. The once wild horse nuzzled her palm gently. Inside the cabin, Tessa reread Ethan's journal, particularly his final entries about their shared future. Her brother had seen possibility where others saw hardship, beauty where others saw desolation. He'd been building something meaningful, not just surviving. In that moment, clarity arrived. Tessa had come west with dreams that died alongside Ethan. But new dreams had taken root, teaching children who valued education, building community in this small town, creating a legacy from her brother's beginning, and most importantly, building a life with a man whose strength matched her own. Zeke found her there, arriving as afternoon shadows lengthened. "Thought you might be here," he said, dismounting. "Everything all right?" Tessa smiled, certainty filling her heart. "Yes, I've been thinking about your proposal." And his expression remained carefully neutral despite the hope in his eyes. "I'd like to accept," she said simply, "but with conditions." Relief broke across his features. "Name them." "I want to continue teaching, at least until the town finds a permanent replacement." She stepped closer. "And I want this cabin preserved, not as our home but as a reminder of beginnings." Easily arranged. Zeke's hand settled at her waist. "Any other conditions?" "Just one." Tessa's eyes held his. "I want to be very clear that I'm accepting because I love you, Zeke Taylor. Not for convenience or protection or financial security." His smile transformed his face. "That's the most important condition of all." He drew her closer. "When should we make this official?" "April," Tessa decided, "when the wildflowers bloom on the hillside." True to her word, Tessa and Zeke married in April 1886, exchanging vows beneath budding cottonwoods on the boundary between their properties. The entire town attended, celebrating not just their union but the community's growth and prosperity as railroad plans were officially announced. Charlie and his bride Sarah moved into Ethan's cabin, managing that section of what became the Taylor Double T Ranch, the second T honoring Tessa's contribution. The railroad brought anticipated opportunity, with the combined property becoming one of the region's most successful operations. Tessa continued teaching for 2 more years until qualified replacements arrived. She then focused on ranch management alongside Zeke, developing innovative approaches that increased productivity while maintaining the land's integrity. Their partnership proved as effective in business as in marriage, each bringing complementary strengths. Their first child, a son named Ethan after Tessa's brother, arrived in 1888, followed by daughter Margaret in 1890. The family thrived, with the children growing up understanding both books and Broncos. Eastern refinement and Western practicality. Tempest became Tessa's personal mount, the once wild Mustang responding only to her touch. Their mutual trust symbolized her transformation from Eastern city woman to confident rancher who could navigate both worlds. On their 5th anniversary, Zeke surprised Tessa with a specially bound volume, her brother's journal combined with her own writings about their developing ranch, creating a family legacy for future generations. "You came west following one dream," Zeke said as they sat on their porch, watching sunset paint the distant mountains. "Found another entirely." "Both were worthy," Tessa replied, leaning against his shoulder, "but this one's better for being shared." By their 10th anniversary in 1896, the Taylor Double T had become a regional landmark, known for progressive ranching methods and hospitality. Tessa established a small lending library in Concord, bringing books and educational opportunities to isolated homesteads. The century turned, bringing automobiles, telephones, and further changes to the frontier that had challenged and transformed Tessa Vance Taylor. Through it all, the foundation remained land that demanded respect, community that provided strength, and love that had built dreams neither had imagined possible alone. In 1910, 25 years after Tessa stepped off that westbound train into an uncertain future, the Taylor family gathered for a celebration at the original cabin, now preserved as a family monument. 4 children, the oldest now in college, listened as Tessa and Zeke recounted their beginnings. "I came west following my brother's dream," Tessa told them, Zeke's hand warm in hers. "Found him gone but discovered my own path instead. Sometimes the dreams that die make room for better ones to grow." Zeke smiled at the woman who had transformed from determined but inexperienced Easterner to his equal partner in all things. "Your mother," he told their children, "taught me that strength isn't measured by muscle but by heart, and that some treasures are worth waiting for." As twilight settled over the Wyoming landscape they both loved, Tessa reflected on the journey from loss to love, from stranger to belonging. The West had demanded everything she had to give, but returned abundance beyond any dream she'd carried on that long-ago train. Zeke's arm encircled her shoulders as they watched their legacy children, land, community thriving around them. Dreams reborn, stronger for the breaking, more beautiful for the mending. The story of the Taylor Double T Ranch, written daily in love and perseverance, continuing beyond any single lifetime into the generations that would follow.